Hi everyone, Ina here, clinical nutritionist and co-founder of My Custom Cleanse. As many of you know, Alyssa was expecting and actually she just had her baby boy this morning. We're super excited for her and she and the baby are doing well. So today it's just going to be me in the video and Alyssa's going to be joining me shortly and doing some videos for you guys as well. Today, I wanted to talk about an issue that we hear about from so many of our patients and so many customers at My Custom Cleanse, and that is the question about gluten. And, with gluten, many people say, okay, well, if I have a sensitivity, do I have celiac disease? And oftentimes people will go to the gastroenterologist and they would get a celiac test and it's going to come out negative. They say, okay, well, you don't have an issue with gluten, so that means I don't have to avoid it, right? Well, the answer to that, it actually depends. So I want to explain that a little bit. If you think about a spectrum, let's say 0 is here, 100 is here. So celiac disease is when you actually are 100, means that you have an extreme sensitivity or intolerance where your body cannot handle gluten at all, and that will actually destroy certain parts of the intestine, and that can be really dangerous. However, the problem with the celiac test is that if you are at, say, 99 on the spectrum, then it doesn't come out as positive. So then what happens is you're considered negative for celiac, but you're at 99 sensitive, which means you have quite a bit of a sensitivity. So then we're sort of dealing with a different animal where if you're eating foods that contain gluten, and by the way, for those who don't know, gluten is found in wheat, rye, barley, and oats, then they may have some problems. And so then people say, okay, well, what tests can I do? And how do I figure this out? And, with being in practice for a long time, both Alyssa and I realized that unfortunately there is not the perfect test out there. And the reason for that is because people can be reactive to gluten on many different pathways. Therefore, unless you test all of those pathways, which honestly is kind of virtually impossible, you're going to get false negatives. You don't really normally get a false positive, but you do get false negatives. So you really then don't have a true answer. The other possibility is that gluten, the wheat, plant itself, has actually been slightly modified genetically over the last 50 years. And that was done a lot to actually help the food supply so that we can produce more wheat and feed more people, which of course is wonderful. But the thing is, our body knows when something isn't completely natural. And many people who react to gluten actually react because of this genetic modification and not because of the actual gluten sensitivity, but yet, there's still an issue there. The other thing that it can be, and this is something that's been studied a lot more recently, is the issue with glyphosate. So glyphosate is actually a pesticide. It's the active ingredient in Roundup. And unfortunately in this country, Roundup is used on the wheat during the growth process, but also right before it's harvested. It's actually kind of submerged in the Roundup to help with the harvest. And because of that, unless the wheat is organic, you're getting this chemical glyphosate, which is something that is very, very toxic to the body. And it has various implications, including slowing down the liver, affecting the intestines, affecting even certain mental and emotional things, just because a lot of stuff that's going on in the intestines can be related to what's going on in the brain. And so a lot of people are reacting to the glyphosate that's in the wheat. And this also is really hard when you test, because a lot of tests look at the sensitivity and not some of these other reactions. And so that's the reason why so many people get negative tests and then they say, well, I guess I'm okay with it, but yet when they eat it, they don't really feel great. And so that is actually the reason that we developed our food guide for the Custom Cleanse, where we have specific foods that we take out when people do our plan. And gluten is one of those foods. Now, of course, with that said, as many of you know, when we make the plans, they're completely custom. So we actually take a very detailed history through an online questionnaire, and then we're able to make a plan for you, telling you exactly what to eat, how much of it, at what time, how to combine it. It's very, very detailed, but all those plans do start with the foods that are allowed, which gluten is one of those that is avoided. And the reason is because so many people have issues and it is sometimes hard to test. But what I find is that if you take it out and you feel better, that is usually the best way to know, because your body doesn't lie. it tells you. And then what we usually do is after the 2-week plan, everyone always feels a lot better. People have better digestion, better moods, people lose weight, energy improves, sleep improves. Then what we try to do is we say, okay, well, let's look at the foods we took out. Let's introduce them. And what we do is we introduce them one at a time for a few days each, and we watch and see what happens. Do some of the gains go away with some of the foods? And if so, then that's how we know that, okay, well, there's got to be something going on with that food, whether it's a sensitivity or a reaction to a chemical in that food. And then that gives us clues as to what we should do going forward to maintain all of the benefits that we've achieved. So I hope that's helpful, and I hope that explains things a little bit more about gluten. The other thing I want to talk about is why this issue tends to happen as we get older, specifically as we get into our late 30s, our 40s, and our 50s. And so I don't want to make this video too long, so we're going to do part 2 of this next week, and I will see you guys there. And just wanted to thank you again for emailing us with all of your questions. That's actually part of the reason why Alyssa and I started doing these videos, because we were getting a lot of wonderful questions, and we thought if some people have these questions, then others are going to have these same questions. So we wanted to share these answers. So please keep those emails coming, and also you can post questions right on our wall on Facebook, and we will be answering them all. So thank you so much. We'll see you guys next week.